we'll discuss the AO or ambient occlusion texture, and then after that, the ARM or ORM textures. First is the AO or ambient occlusion. In computer graphics, the term ambient occlusion is used to describe small subtle shadows that appear on corners, gaps, and crevices. You usually see these shadows in an overcast skylight and hardly see them in bright sunlight. This is where the word ambient originated. The term ambient or ambient lighting is a condition where lights are coming from all directions in a uniform strength, while the term occlusion means areas that are occluded or blocked from the lighting. This is due to the surface that forms holes, gaps, and corners. So, how can we use this AO texture then? Well, the answer is, you don't use them. That is, if you are using cycles to render your image. Why? There are 3 reasons for this. First, if you use cycles for rendering, all shadows will be calculated automatically, whether they are from direct lighting or indirect lighting. Adding static AO textures to your rendering will make it look fake, as they will appear even under bright light conditions. The second reason is that Cycles does not support AO texture. There is no input slot available for the ambient occlusion texture for a good reason. Remember our discussion on albedo and diffuse textures? People tried so hard to take away the shadows from the color texture. So why in the world do we want to put them back in? The third reason is that if you do want to achieve faster rendering time by sacrificing realism, Cycles already provides its own AO system called Fast GI approximation. Okay, so again, if you are using Blender and Cycles for rendering, just ignore the AO textures. Most people who are using AO textures are using them for game development. Game engines such as Unreal Engine support the use of ambient occlusion textures. The way these game engines work with AO texture is that they display the texture only when the surface is not hit by direct lighting. They only show up when the lighting conditions is in shadow or overcast or in indirect lighting condition. In other words, it knows exactly when to use them and when to turn them off to make the rendering results look believable. Personally, I use Unreal Engine a lot to make architectural 3D animation. But because our course is not about Unreal Engine, we will just leave it at that. The last one is the ARM textures, sometimes referred to as ORM textures. In recent years, there have been more and more people using a strange new texture type that looks like the normal map texture, but they are not. If you see this type of texture, don't be confused. Basically, they are 3 textures combined into a single image. This method is known as channel packing, and the textures are called channel pack textures. As in the case of ARM or ORM textures, the first texture is the ambient occlusion texture stored in the first channel or the red channel. The second is the roughness texture stored in the green channel. And the third is the metallic texture stored in the blue channel. So, unlike the color texture, this texture is not intended to be viewed as is. Please note that this type of texture is mostly used in game development to make packing the game data easier or less complicated to maintain. We rarely see these textures for non-game usage. But in case you receive a texture set that uses this approach, you can still use it in Blender by first separating the channels. For practice, unfortunately, I couldn't find any ORM texture that is copyright-free that I can share in this course. So I created this ORM texture myself from a texture set provided by cgbookies.com. Alright, for this workflow, you cannot use Node Wrangler as it does not support channel pack textures like this, at least not in the version I am currently using. Hopefully, Node Wrangler will support it in the future. For now, we have to assign the texture manually. Now, because the ORM texture does not contain any albedo and normal map information, we still need to use these textures in different image texture nodes. And for this, we can still use the Node Wrangler add-on. So let's start with these two textures first. We want to use the floor plan object for this, so make sure it is selected. Then select the Principal BSDF node, then press Shift-Ctrl-T. Select only the color and the normal textures. You can try selecting the ARM texture also, but it will get ignored. Click this button to confirm. Alright. We now have the color and the normal map assigned. Next, to use the ARM texture, we can create a new image texture node. Or we can also duplicate this color texture node by pressing Shift-D. Let's organize these nodes so we can see their connections better. Now, click on the folder icon to load the ARM texture. Make sure it is set to sRGB as we want all three channels to get outputted. Now, this is the important part. To split the RGB channels into individual channels, we need to use a special node called the separate color. So press Shift-A and type in separate, then choose the separate color node. Plug this in. Now we can use each of the red, green, and blue channel separately. The first one is the ambient occlusion data. Remember, we don't need this texture if we are rendering with cycles, so we can ignore it. The second channel or the green channel is for the roughness value, so we need to plug this into the roughness input slot. Lastly, the blue channel is for the metalness value, so we plug this into the metallic slider. And there you have it. After you understand how to use this separate color node, you should be able to handle different types of channel-packed textures. For example, if someone decided to create an image file containing roughness, alpha, and emission, you can easily use that image in your material. All you need to know is the order of the textures. The first texture should be at the red channel, the second is at the green channel, and the third is at the blue channel.